Well, as the video title says, I noticed that my channel has recently made it up to 5,000 subscribers, which is honestly amazing just how much growth there's been in the past couple of years, especially compared to the previous 8 or 9 before it. So I just want to thank everyone for all your viewership. And I thought for this video, just to celebrate that, I'd do something a little bit different. So instead of doing a build or project video, what I've decided to do instead is simply show my collection of critters so far. And I consider a critter to be anything that has 2 axles and is either a gas or electric prototype. So to start off here, this is my heavily modified Athearn Hustler, which I showed in one of my early videos. So this is one that I completely rebuilt. I added a lot of details. I repowered it with a coreless motor, Northwest Shortline drive with a reduction gearbox, as well as flea gearboxes for the axles. That makes it a nice smooth, slow runner with very nice efficiency. It's got directional lighting. I even put a lot of additional detail into other areas, which you can see inside of there. There's a full cab interior, which I cut out from styrene sheet, added a couple wire details here and there, just to represent handles and such. That's all closed in some plastic window glass. And for some of the details, it's just a lot of wire grab irons and railings with some lost wax brass stanchions to make it look really nice. I have a Canon company exhaust fan up here, so that really adds a nice bit of fine, well, just real fine detail to it with that really, really thin etching. So that turned out looking great, I think. This also turned out to be a nice running model. Of course, with it being a 4-wheel critter, the electrical pickup isn't the best, but it does pretty well. It's a fairly quiet runner, nice and smooth, very good speed control. There's the directional light. And I painted this with the CIL there. I call that Central Illinois Logging. Not that there's any actual real logging around Central Illinois. There's more farmland here. So it's very fictional. So now let's hook up a couple cars to it. Alright, so hooked up behind that is a couple Katie Skelton logging cars, loaded with some giant redwoods, which definitely grow all over Central Illinois. Like, you wouldn't believe these things just pop up in people's backyards overnight, and they are kind of a nuisance around here. So that's why the logging railroad is needed. And then in back is just a Katie logging caboose. I have another one of these Skelton logging cars, but I thought 2 looked appropriate with the Hustler. So let's get this going in the correct direction. No problem at all pulling them along. I actually can put a lot more behind it. But like I said, this is an appropriate load for an engine this size. And that's getting it up to full speed, with just an occasional loss of power here and there. Like I said, the electrical pickup isn't great. I may also just need to clean the track in that spot. And there it comes back around. This is one of my early big repower and detail projects. I think it turned out really well overall. Now, next up is this 15-ton Mack critter made by Jordan Products. And Jordan Products has been out of business for a few years due to the death of the owner, unfortunately. And I don't know if we'll ever see these made again. Hope we will, though, because there's some very nice kits. Fit together super cleanly and easily. And it was easy to modify it to fit a Bachmann 44-ton power truck from their original drive system, which used individual small motors in each truck. So I actually posted a build topic for this on Model Railroaders forum a long time ago, so you might be able to look that up and find it, see how I put it all together. As in addition to the truck in there, I actually also put in a constant lighting system. And that is directional, using mini bulbs. Now, this isn't exactly the best runner, and with the super short wheelbase, the electrical pickup really isn't good at all. Maybe I can fit a Keep Alive in there or something, but that's a project for another day. So this time I have it hooked up to just one logging car with the caboose, because with the size that this is, that's really about all it can handle. So let's see if this can make it around. I think the momentum from the log car will help to keep it going over some switches. And it does also need a little bit of oil somewhere. You can probably hear that little squeak. Okay, didn't quite make it. Maybe I should put the next ones over the outer loop since they don't have that switch in the back. And now next up is this Grant Line GE 25-ton critter. So this was another kit that I put together. It's all plastic, had almost no weight, so I had to add some little pieces of lead in the front and back. Turned out to be a pretty nice runner. Good low speed control. It's not exactly perfect, just because of how interesting the mechanism is with a lot of gears in it. So it sounds kind of rough when it's running sometimes, but it mostly does pretty well. And these were made to use Katie's, I think these are the number 711, really small couplers. They just fit right in there with their pockets. Look good. Small size is a nice match for the size of the critter. So now I'll put it over here onto the outer track. Hook up the skeleton log car again, along with the caboose. Hold the camera steady. And get that going. It's a slow runner, that's its full speed. These are made for low speed control and high torque with their kind of tiny motors. One of the original wheels was actually defective and super out of round. And I found that Intermountain's freight car wheels actually fit pretty easy as replacements for the non-geared wheel sets. And as for the gearing, just so you can see what's in there. So it has the compound gear system, reduction gear system that comes down from the motor just to the first axle. But then the rest of the gears are contained in one of the side frames with these really very thin gears. So you can see that it's a kind of a complex kit to build. If you can get it just right, it's not a bad runner. And now right here we've got another Mack 15-tonner, but this one is made by Wiseman Model Services, and this is a white metal kit, so it's got a lot of weight to it. It's a Actually quite a bit smaller than the plastic Jordan Products kit though, just because of the body on this one, which uses the hoods from like you would see on Mack trucks instead of on their trains usually. So on this one, I powered it using a custom-made chassis using mostly Northwest Shortline parts. The wheels are made by Intermountain. So I have a small vertically placed motor in there, which you can see through the door on the other side. And I also managed to put a flywheel inside, so that helps it to coast through some of the dirty spots. So that drives a central gear there, which goes into this channel in the side that has more gears driving the axles. And it's a nice smooth runner too, and thanks to the metal body, it's got some decent traction. Get those cars hooked up again. This one I modified some Katie number 58 couplers to fit. Turned out pretty nice. It's a very smooth runner. Very quiet too. There's some minor electrical issues that I need to solve where it's just kind of losing pickup along the way. It does better at lower speeds though for some reason, so not quite sure what's up there. It's one of those things to look into later. But at lower speeds like this, it is still an extremely smooth runner, and that I'm very happy with how it turned out. And back when I posted this on the Model Railroader forum, one of the others around there who likes small projects like this, he asked me what gears I used so that he could replicate the chassis himself, and he got at least another one of these powered and turned out real nice for him. So this is one project that kind of made its way around a little. Turned out very nice. Now my last critter to have the Central Illinois Logging logo on there is this Pinline D1 Midget. So this was Pinline's original switcher that they started making back in the late 1940s. And unlike their more common D2 model, this one has a solid lead body. The frame is milled out brass and it's extremely heavy. The motor, it's a DC-60 I believe, faces forward and has a belt drive going down to the worm shaft below. Originally came with a spring belt, but that was long gone when I bought this, so I replaced it with an Athearn belt at one point, but it was too close to the oil and grease, soaked it up and turned to jelly. So then I replaced that with one of the more durable neoprene belts that came out of a CD drive. And just added on some new handrails since those were also either damaged or missing, along with the steps going up to the cab and walkways. Just painted the headlight silver since there's no room to add a bulb in there. And I'm going back up to 2 logging cars for this one, just since it's a little bit larger than some of those others. And it actually weighs probably as much as a lot of your common HO scale mid-size diesels, so it's got a lot of traction behind it, or underneath it I should say. That was unusual. It's usually a little more reliable than that electrically, but now it's doing a little better. This might be another case of just needing to clean it, since the wheels are brass, so they tend to tarnish when I leave it sitting for a while. But once it's going, it is very smooth. Honestly, it's just as smooth as really anything else you can get today. These were very well made. You can go a lot faster than this, but it doesn't need to. It also draws over half an amp with that old Pitman motor into the belt drive, so it is not at all efficient, but it's still a fun engine to have. Okay, so the Pinline was the second to last with the Central Illinois Logging logo on it. So this here is a Grant Line 23-ton box cab. And this one, instead of using the Grant Line system, I repowered it with Northwest Shortline flea gearboxes and axles, and I have a belt drive going up to an extremely large coreless motor, which is the absolute largest motor that I could fit inside of here, so it also provides all the weight. And this turned out to be, I'd say, my quietest critter. It's especially quiet when it's not running. It was going just fine a minute ago. There it goes. I don't know what was going on there. They're just all complaining since they have the camera on them. You know how it goes. Yeah, that's extremely quiet, smooth, has a nice speed control thanks to that really big coreless armature. Now let's move it over here. Again, hook up the logging car and get this running around the layout. So that's its full speed right there. I put quite a bit of reduction into the belt drive, so the pulley, I actually made that from a freight car wheel for the lower end of it, and then the upper end, I just grabbed some plastic and turned that into a much smaller pulley. And the results were very nice. It uses an Athearn belt, so it's easy to get those and replace them whenever I need. As long as I keep it dry, it lasts for a long time. The detail is also pretty nice on these. There are a lot of small grab irons and other parts around to be put on during the build. And the top of it is kind of blank. It only has those 2 air tanks on it, so that can be modified, detailed to your liking very easily. I just need to add some window glass in there to finish it up. That's something I've been needing to do. Just haven't gotten around to it yet. And now right here we have a unique little electric industrial switcher. I guess this is used on a small industrial railway up in Canada, and someone up there saw it and liked the design, so he created a 3D model and sent that over to Shapeways, who then printed it. So I'm not quite sure if it's still up and available there or not, but if it is, it's a decent little model. It was originally made to be unpowered. The one who designed it, he didn't think it actually could be done just with what was available, but I took that as a challenge. And heavily modified, a Bachmann 44-ton power truck to fit under there. So you can see I had to kind of cut away and change some material. The motor is now in the back, vertically placed in the cab. That's a Northwest Shortline. I think it's their 1215, 1015 or something. Well, whatever it is, it's their smallest motor. I put the Bachmann worm onto there, and it turned out to be an alright little runner. This was actually a defective truck that was the first one sent to me when I was powering the Jordan Products Mac. It was in the parts bin for a long time, but then I decided to pull it back out, see if I could fix it and get it working, and it turned out alright. I put some Northwest Shortline wheels on there, and it's a somewhat smooth runner. And behind it I now have a couple just open hoppers, something a little more industrial and mining related anyway than the logging cars. An interesting little detail about this engine is it has the trolley pole on there for picking up from an overhead wire, but the industrial railway using this doesn't always have enough wire for it to pick up from. So there's a cable reel on the deck there, you can see, and they could unwind an extension cable from that and plug it in case they ever ran out of trolley wire or overhead wire. Get over that switch. So yeah, this is a fun little project to work on. Kind of an interesting challenge. I think it turned out all right. Now here's one that may be a little more familiar to some of you. This is the AEG Decky 3, which was made for Japanese railways by German manufacturer AEG. This model came from a small manufacturer called Cosmic. It was a brass etched kit, which was very easy to put together, just very nice quality. Came out great. This is a 1/80th scale model instead of 1/87th, but even with that, it's still extremely tiny. Just a small four-wheel chassis there with a short wheelbase. But even with that, it's a powerful little model and an extremely smooth runner. So let's get those freight cars back over here and get it running. A little bit of gear noise just because of how it's made. But it's just an extremely smooth runner overall. Very nice quality. Sometimes it jumps over those switches just because that wheelbase is so short. Here's one more that may be familiar to a few of you. This is my freelanced steeple cab switcher. When I first got my resin 3D printer, I drew this up in my modeling program just to see what kind of detail I could get out of the printer. And this only took me a couple hours to design. It's nothing really complicated, but it's got some little rivets around that you can see. Came out nice. And there's my little custom chassis there, which I threw together from scrap materials. Super slow running, but this is all done just for the fun of it. And I'll get to finishing this into a nice model eventually. For now, I'm not going to make it pull anything just because there are no couplers on there, obviously. So I can't make it pull anything. But you can see that this is just a super slow runner. So one of those things that's all just about fun, being creative. And now last up is this little British shunter made by Hornby. So this is a side rod engine, which is kind of cool. And this is currently the cheapest brand new powered model that you can get that runs on HO track. You can find these for about $45, $50 on Amazon, I think. But it's a very simple model, just a one-piece plastic body with a window glass inserted. Although they do include a couple extra details you can stick onto there. It's got these stationary buffers on it. The hook and loop couplers are built directly into the metal chassis, so they're kind of non-removable. I'm actually working on some Dapple car kits right now to work with these and some of my other European models. But the walkway board there, as well as the chassis itself, are metal, so that's nice. Gives it a little bit of weight. It's not a bad runner either. A little bit wobbly once you get it up to speed, which you'll see in just a moment. I think when it's pulling some cars, that'll actually take away some of the wobble, since it'll have something to kind of stabilize it as it goes around. Yeah, it's a quiet, actually decent speed control. It's kind of cool seeing those side rods go around on a little gas switcher like this. Something a bit unusual. So that's all for my collection of HO gauge critters for now. This is kind of fun, doing a different type of video, just showing a section of my collection. It's not something I do very often. So I might have to consider doing more videos like this, maybe as I achieve other milestones on YouTube. Maybe I'll show some of my brass collection or finished kits. Well, we'll just have to see when we get there. For now though, I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one too.